When we started Hollaback, we weren't trying to create a nonprofit organization. We weren't trying to create a movement. We were just trying to solve a problem. And the problem we were trying to solve was street harassment. There were 7 of us. So there were 4 women and 3 men. We were between the ages of like 21 and 24 at the time. And there were these newfangled technologies in the world. There were cell phone cameras all of a sudden and blogs all of a sudden. And we were inspired by this young woman named Tal Nguyen who took a picture of a guy who was exposing himself across from her on the subway. And that photo went viral and she shared her story, and by sharing her story, everyone in the city came forward with a story that they had experienced something similar to. So the blog started in September of 2005, and we started getting stories from all over New York City of people who had experienced really similar things. The other dream that we had really was that maybe one day we could see ads in the New York City subway. And we were able to work together with 2 amazing organizations, Girls for Gender Equity and Center for Anti-Violence Education, to bring that dream to life. And by 2008, only 3 years after we'd started Hollaback, we saw those ads in the subway. And it was just this phenomenal experience because we were all volunteers at the time. And yet this issue was hitting such a nerve that even in its infancy, people were like, yes, we need to do something about this. We received all kinds of responses when we started doing this work. And it ranged from people who had experienced harassment, who were like, thank God, somebody is doing something. I thought I was the only one. But then there were all these people that hadn't really experienced harassment, who were looking at this issue like, what are you talking about? Don't you just need to get a thicker skin? This is just a problem of your hypersensitive self, right? And we even had a major social justice foundation from 2010 say, look, street harassment is not a problem in the United States. We like what you're doing, but we're not gonna fund it because it's not a significant enough social issue. You know, when people didn't believe us that it was an issue, I think the most powerful thing I had on my side was the clarity that if people knew the extent to which it happened and the extent to which it hurt, they would do something about it. And so we thought, okay, let's tell them. Let's tell our stories. So we started telling those stories on a blog in 2005. We started telling those stories on an app in 2010. We started doing research with Cornell University in 2015 to develop bigger data sets. The CDC even started researching this issue. And so we were really able to slowly but surely make the case that this happened and that it hurt. And now, fast forward to today, people understand that it happens and it hurts, and they're looking for solutions, right? And the solution that we started developing back in 2012 of bystander intervention is now something that so many people, 250,000 people last year have showed up to get trained on. But when we developed it, people were like, really? Bystander intervention's not a solution because harassment's not a problem. We were lucky if we were training 500 people a year at that point. So just the shift in this issue and the historic nature of it has been profound and beautiful, and I think a testament to humans. And when we see something, we want to fix it. There was a part of me that still blamed myself for what I was experiencing. And so when I started to see online harassment happen to my friends, happen to other people in the social justice space, I thought, this isn't going down like this, like no way. So we thought, can we take everything we've learned about street harassment, which isn't a very dissimilar problem, and apply it to online harassment? Can we bring storytelling and bystander intervention and this idea of us taking care of us into this problem? And we did. We started something called Heart Mob, and we started really showing people that ultimately, although there was stuff that social media companies could and should be doing, although there was stuff that governments could and should be doing on this issue, that it was what was gonna move the needle on it wasn't because corporations or governments solved this problem, it was gonna be because we solved that problem. And so we have come together and really started to lay out a model for people and how to take care of one another when online harassment happens, and reminded people who experience online harassment that they are deserving of that care. My name is Emily May, and I'm the co-founder and executive director.
I'm Jorge Altiaga, and I'm the deputy director.
And we are Right to Be. Yeah, you know, when we started, it wasn't for lack of a big enough mission or a big enough issue to solve. It was really an issue of funding. People just didn't have funding streams dedicated to harassment. They weren't used to making gifts to end harassment. They weren't even sure it was possible. And I think what we've seen over the past year is, you know, post Me Too, you know, the Black Lives Matter protest, Stop AAPI Hate, right? All of these conversations have really led us to a place where we acknowledge that harassment happens, and with that has come the ability to grow. Because with that comes people who are really ready to put their money where their mouth is and invest in addressing it. And so that has been this beautiful process of, okay, now people are willing to invest in this change. Now we have an opportunity to grow from, you know, the scrappy organization that could to the institution that an issue as big as harassment deserves.
You know, 250,000 people showing up to a training is a big deal. I think though, when we look at bystander intervention, or we're talking about it, you know, for some folks, it's like, what is that? What are you talking about, right? Because when they think about allyship or showing up meaningfully for someone, everyone automatically thinks about direct intervention, right? Like they have to say something, they have to physically get involved. And the big aha moment, even for myself showing up to the organization, was like, no, there's other ways that you can show up to support folks that doesn't require you putting yourself in harm's way, or allows you to preserve your own safety, right?
You know, I think the incredible expansion of it in the past few years speaks not only to people's desire to want to take care of each other, but also to this idea that we understand and acknowledge that harassment exists because we let it exist, and that we can do something about it. And that feels like such a pivotal shift in how we think about things that creates so much space for solutions. And so that kind of responsive movement building where people feel like there's concrete things that they can do to be an ally, that it's not just about posting the latest woke meme on Facebook. Those things can be helpful, but they're not it, right? We want to give people concrete tools to turn the care that they have for each other into action.
Hollaback then, I feel like, was the call to empower people to speak up about their experience, to say something. And now I think we're past that. We're in a different phase. Like, people know, yeah, I need to speak up about this experience. Particularly, you know, when we talk about the movements that have been occurring, right? Post Me Too, people knew that now they have the power to tell their stories on social media the way they want to, right? Like, they want to tell the story. And so we didn't want to just, like, people know now they can share their stories. We have our story app, we're collecting stories. Now we want them to go out there and start to change, like literally make the change in the world, right? Meaning in your communities, if you're in your community board, in your kids' schools, if you are a CEO, a C-suite person in your organization, what are the changes you're doing there so that your folks feel like they have the right to be themselves where, you know, while they're there. And so, yeah, I feel like this new iteration of who we are is just now making space for the change that we've, I think, always seen as possible.
Yeah.
And there's so many iterations, so many plays on it, which allows space for inclusivity and intersectionality, and right, everyone's invited to the movement. Come, be yourself, whoever you are, show up to the movement to take care of each other, which is now kind of what it looks like, right? Which is like, yeah, because then it's like, right to be queer and right to be a woman and right to be Black and right to be the.
We are continuing to expand to look at different forms of harassment. We have trainings coming online that look at ableist forms of harassment, that look at anti-Muslim or anti-Semitic forms of harassment. We really want to go broad with this because we think that the tools that help one community can be adapted to be the tools that help another community. But we want those changes and those adaptations to be made in partnership with the organizations that are really leading these movements and leading these conversations, so that we make sure that it's not just us being like, hey folks, like here's a solution, right? But that we're really vetting this past those communities to make sure that they think it would work, and partnering with them to adapt each curriculum to make sure it's going to work for that community and that experience. I think the other piece of this isn't just about identities. I think we're really starting to think, can we go younger? We're starting to think about the 5 Ds for kids. I've got a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old at home, and they are already feeling the effects of bullying. And we're working now to develop these curriculums for kids so that it starts off at a young age, that it's not just that bullying isn't okay, which I think they've gotten that message, right? It's that you can proactively do something when you see bullying. And you can do more than just tell a teacher, which is the line that we've been giving kids forever.
We will continue to encourage folks to share their experiences of harassment, but really as a way for them to practice resilience, right? For affirmation, knowing that yes, we know your experience, we know it's real, we believe you, and you're not alone. And that's something that I think will continue to be a pivotal part of the work that we do. It's the voice of the people of the movement, right? Continuing to iterate our trainings, our bystander intervention trainings, in partnership with organizations that are working with the communities that we want to work within, which are either historically marginalized or communities that folks are not typically thinking of their experiences of harassment in the world. When people ask us, what do you do? We are, educators, motivators, facilitators that are cheering you on and letting you know that you got this, you can make a change in the world. And we do that through our trainings, to providing space for discussions. We plan to launch some community facilitated discussions as we embark on broadening our movement building work, to really allow the communities to speak about, you know, what their experience is, how harassment is happening in their communities.
And to me, the sort of rainbow of colors, the wave, and the strength of right to be, combined with that spaciousness of letting people be really who they are, which could mean being gay or queer or a person of color or disabled, but could also mean being pissed off that you just got harassed, being mad that society hasn't addressed this yet, being hopeful that we could come to a solution. All of that we deserve to feel, we deserve to be. And so I think the brand really creates space for the future that we're gonna create together.
There's always all these things you want to do as an organization, right? All this work we wanted to do, and as we've seen the opportunity arrive, we're like, well, this is where we want to invest, right? This is where we need the most brilliant people. This is the programs that we feel the world needs right now. Or these are where people are showing up for us right now. And so over time, what it's really been is assessing what does the movement need right now, and then finding the most brilliant, amazing, passionate, values-aligned folks to fill those roles and step into that work.
We need every single person on board with this, because this seismic level of change doesn't happen because a couple people are down for it. It happens because we're all down for it. And I think all of us have a story inside of ourselves where we have been treated as less than. All of us have a story that we can plug into to understand what it might be for others to be treated as less than. And all of us have inside of us the capacity to change, not just ourselves, but the world. And I think that's the power of what we're doing. Our work, our mission is to give people the space to step into their own power.
Please consider making a donation at eradicate.org to help us end harassment in all its forms.